Hello everyone, this is a special edition on my live stream Facebook channel, and I'll tell you why. There's something I've been really excited about, and I need to give you a little bit of background. I think all of you are familiar now with the 2019 Book of Common Prayer. It's red, it's very attractive, you know where it's available from Anglican Media in California. And in fact, as I travel around the church, lots and lots of people are using it. What I do understand is there are a number of people who said, I would like to use it, but I'm not in a parish that uses contemporary English. And as you know, the 2019 Book of Common Prayer is in contemporary English. And there's a reason for that that we won't go into today. But do understand, as I think many of you know who are watching this, that there are many, many parishes and many, many clergy who prefer the Elizabethan English, or to put it a little differently, for some, that would mean Rite One. For others, it would mean 1928 American. For some, it would mean 1962 Canadian, and for a few, it might mean 1662 England. So with that in mind, the question was, what in the world do we do to make a prayer book available to people that's usable in places where the Elizabethan English, or as we sometimes say, the traditional English, is needed? Well, many of you may know that I have a chaplain, and my chaplain is not just somebody who makes sure that I have the right vestments at the right time in the right place. No, not at all. He does infinitely more than that. I'll brag about him another time. But what I would like to talk about today is I want to show you a book, and I want to bring him on now so that we can talk about it. Jacob, I guess when you look at this book, which is green, that it means more than just a book that somebody picks off a shelf.
Yes.
How long has this book been in the making?
The first draft of this book appeared in late 2017.
Wow. And I'm interested, I mean, really, here you are living in the Fort Worth area. Here is the Liturgy Task Force, of which I'm senior member, and I have to ask this question. Why are you involved in this?
I was fairly young. I think I was 16, and I was homesick. I was a good, faithful son of the Diocese of Fort Worth, and I was reared on the 1928 prayer book and Rite One from the 1979 prayer book, and when I saw that the new prayer book, at the time Text for Common Prayer, was exclusively in contemporary language, I thought that this couldn't stand, and I was going to sit down and put it in traditional language, and so I did. And I did that over summer break, and now we have a traditional language draft. I submitted that to the Liturgy Task Force via email. Of course, because the process was all online, they didn't know that I was 16 or 17, but they thought the work I had done was decent, and they approved it. Wow. And asked me to join.
Well, I actually saw a couple of interviews. So one of the interviews that involves you was actually printed and posted and mailed out. And what was that medium?
Which interview? With the Apostle?
Tell us all about the different interviews you've had so far that people could actually look at.
Well, I did an interview, the first one with New Directions, which is the magazine for Ford and Faith UK, regarding the traditional language prayer book, which I think was fruitful. And then I did an interview with the Apostle, which is the official ACNA publication, regarding my testimony, my coming to Christ, as well as my work on the traditional language edition and what shape that might take.
Wow. Then I think in the diocesan paper for the Diocese
Yes.
of Fort Worth, there's been something, right?
There has. We just put out recently a sort of communique about the traditional language edition and why it might be attractive for those of us in the Diocese of Fort Worth who, in general, have a more Catholic outlook, and how this might be an answer to some people's prayers.
I think that's really wonderful. I know I have found it helpful already, quite frankly. But there are a couple things about it that I find to be very intriguing. First of all, for those who are in the Episcopal Church and are still in the process of recovering from some liturgical work of the past, this is in fact a green book. This is in fact not the green book that some of you remember. This is a nicer color of green too. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay, you avoided that and you're blessed. No need for healing of memories. But the other thing that I find intriguing about this book, as I looked through it, Jacob, and as I reviewed it as a member of the task force, is you work diligently to make sure, wherever possible, that the pages in the 2019 Book of Common Prayer, ACNA, and the pages in the what we call TLE, which stands for what?
Traditional Language Edition.
Are the same, wherever
Yes.
possible. In fact, there are very few places.
There are. I mean, the traditional language in general is a little more, it's a little wordier. And so you have, especially with, for example, the Benedicite is going to be longer. There's no way around that. So we had to add an extra page, and it was numbered something like page 63A.
Yeah.
We had to add some pages for the Psalter. Psalms ended up being a little bit longer, and that was only a few extra pages. In general, if you opened up to page 110 in the standard edition and 110 in the traditional language edition, they would match.
It's so helpful, it really is. And you know what's also helpful, it seems to me, is let's say that you go into a parish that is large enough to have 2 congregations. And you do understand, folks, when we say congregation, only modernists, I think, or more recent folks think of that as being a separate church. Within a parish or a mission church, there are perhaps 2 congregations. There's the 8 o'clock congregation, because it refers to people congregating. 8 o'clock, let's say 11 o'clock for sake of the argument. And in a significant number of churches, the people go to 8 o'clock are accustomed to something that is more like the 28 book or is Rite 1, whereas people going to 11 o'clock may have the Rite 2 or contemporary English. I don't know. Every place is different. But that means that if somebody goes to 8 o'clock and they're accustomed to turning to page 110 in the 2019 book, and then they see the green edition and they turn to page 110, they may at first say, oh, the word's a bit different, but they're all the same pretty much prayers that I'm accustomed to seeing when I go to 8 o'clock. But the other thing that's interesting, it seems to me, Jacob, is for those who have used the 1979 Book of Common Prayer, even though they may have preferred Rite 1, they still had to use a Psalter that was Rite 2, didn't they? So that is one of the anomalies of the 79 book here. Here you are cruising along with Elizabethan English, and then you're told to open up the Psalter in the 79 book, and you have a unique translation that is contemporary. In the 2019 prayer book, another time we'll talk about it, it's a remarkable translation, and it is much more like the Coverdale in terms of being accurate but singable. This, on the other hand, says, why would you want to rework something that is done so well? So instead of you having to run out and grab your 1928 prayer book, or use your 1928 prayer book, or download portions of the Coverdale, this is Coverdale. This is what people have been accustomed to using if you've been Anglicans for more than 3 weeks. So I think that that's very helpful. But the other thing that occurs to me is while I discovered in my traveling around the church, there are people on the edge of their seat waiting for this book to come out. I was at an event yesterday where I had numerous books, including some that are relatively rare, and I had to keep guard over this because I could see some priests who wanted to take it home with them. And so I was taking fingerprints, things like that. But what I noticed when I open up in here, just to remind you that it's clearly the Book of Common Prayer, Administration of the Sacraments, and then down here it says Anglican Liturgy Press. Anglican Liturgy Press. So I really, even though there have been different names that have been used for it, that's published. This is who publishes it, which is actually an imprint of the Anglican House Media Ministry, Inc. It even has a website, www.anglicanhousepublishers.org. But you say today, I'm ordering 200 copies today. sorry. Be patient. Things are on their way. We already know from some of the conversations we've had with churches that the moment that the first printing is presented for sale, I would say within 24 hours it'll be sold out. That's my opinion, because of the number of people want it, which means we're already having to do a second printing on the horizon. Many of us know that. In here, though, I'm also proud of the fact that if you look very carefully in here, you will see a page where you will see the name Jacob Hootman. So, see, Jacob Hootman, name in here, Jacob Hootman, and so I'm pretty excited about that. But in speaking with some 1928 folks, Jacob, and this is one of the things I thought was important in our talk today, and I'd be one of those. I mean, when I was born into the church, we had two books, the 1928 Book of Common Prayer and the 1940 hymnal.
Mm-hmm.
I happened to be in a parish that used, however, lots of extra liturgical materials. There are a lot of names for that, but let's just say lots of extra liturgical materials. And the question always was, where do you get that?
Mm-hmm.
So we go to the 1928 prayer book, and we look in there and see what's done on Palm Sunday. There's nothing in the 1928 prayer book about what to do on Palm Sunday, except what the collect and the readings are. Likewise, if we go to Maundy Thursday, some of you are familiar with foot washing, or with reserving the sacrament in what, in effect, the altar repose, which is like a Garden of Gethsemane. There's nothing in the 1928 prayer book regarding any kind of extra usage is there for Maundy Thursday. Well, let's go to Good Friday. There's nothing in the 1928 prayer book in terms of what some of you are accustomed to having. Even I would go so far, if you're in a parish that has incorporated or borrowed from other tradition the 3-hour preaching and hymn sing, nowhere in the 1928 prayer book. If you go to a parish on Good Friday that it has a developed liturgy, you know it's there. The Passion, the solemn collects, the veneration of the cross, all of those things. Well, not in the 1928 prayer book. And then what we discovered, at least in my own lifetime, the incredible revival of the Great Vigil. And the Great Vigil, of course, being what happens on the Saturday night before Easter Sunday. And I think all of you know, if you read the Bible carefully, Jesus didn't rise from the dead at 10:45 a.m. on Easter Sunday so he could greet the 11 a.m. worshipers. You do understand that. When the faithful women went to the tomb at daybreak, when they were first allowed to go, he'd already risen from the dead. And so that means that many people in reviving the Great Vigil do that with the understanding that they are anticipating bursting forth from the tomb. Nothing in the 1928 prayer book about a Great Vigil. Now, is this me saying something negative about the 1928 prayer book? Absolutely not. It's me saying, if you do those things, where did you get them? Now, there are some Anglicans who will just look at me and they'll say, well, we get them from the American Missal, the Anglican Missal, or the Not Missal. And I would say to them, I'm happy for you. That's what I did. That's what I had to do. And now, guess what? Right here. So if you're 1928 prayer book parish, and you don't want to take the 1928 prayer book out of the pews, because that's important to you, I really understand. But if you want to start using something on Palm Sunday, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and the Great Vigil, that is an official prayer book somewhere, and is Orthodox, and is in Elizabethan or traditional English, here it is. It's for you. It's done. Now here's the other thing. The Book of Common Prayer 2019, when we worked on it, we determined right up front that it would not be a hammer, but it would be a gift. So this is a gift for worshipers. And even if you're in a parish that you think would not be using this, you probably want to get your own copy, because the family prayers, some morning and evening prayer, all those things, absolutely splendid What do you think, Jacob? Do you see that as being one of the ways in which people can use it?
I do. Especially it comes to mind, we have several parishes in this diocese at least. For example, St. Andrew's in downtown Fort Worth is a committed 1928 low church parish. Nobody expects them to change that. Nobody wants them to change that. However, they have started using some of the collects from the traditional language editions that they can stay on the same collect and lectionary track as the rest of the diocese. Several parishes in the REC, which are committed to the 1928 prayer book or the 2004 REC prayer book, both utilizing, or forgive me, the 2011 REC prayer book, both utilizing the Holy Week rites, the Ash Wednesday rites, some of the other liturgies that might be more adaptable for different contexts. Trying to use this not just as your book, but as a resource that can be helpful for parishes and for individuals.
You know, it's funny. Recently, somebody said to me, I've been looking through my 1928 prayer book, and I cannot find where one of my favorite things is, and could you help me find it? And they were looking for Compline. And as I think most of you know, Compline is the last prayer of the night, the prayers of the night, for monastic orders. And it's where we get the Nunc Dimittis, actually, that we put into evensong or evening prayer. And that is, Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace. And I said, well, you know what, this is called a lesson in futility, my friend. Compline is not in the 1928 Book of Common Prayer. But I'll go to camps, I'll go to vacation Bible schools, and I'll even visit with some families who do Compline together as a family. But they really don't want to use the contemporary English that is in either the 79 prayer book or in the 2019 Book of Common Prayer that has it in there. Guess what? Here's Compline in Elizabethan English. And you get a chance to do it together with your family or camp or at youth groups or whatever events you might be having. I would even encourage you, if parents are watching this, if you ever have sleepovers for your children, have your prayer book handy. You're allowed to pray in your house with people, you know. It's okay. The Nazi regime that doesn't allow us to pray in public places in many states will not be knocking at your door at your house. So is there anything else that you would want to tell anybody about the Book of Common Prayer TLE that comes to your mind?
It will be available soon. I think it arrived in this country last week, or beginning of this week, and they're processing it. Should be available soon. We're having, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's a dedication evensong on June 10th at St. Mark's Church at 6 p.m. in Arlington, Texas, which everyone's welcome to dedicate this book. Bishop Ackerman will be there. Bishop Reed, Archbishop Duncan, and Presiding Bishop Sutton will also be there to dedicate the book.
That's exciting.
It is.
I can't quite get over how we have gotten to the point we are today. And I'm also really thrilled about the fact that you have a chance to see and hear from the man who happened to do something one summer that grew and grew and grew and grew. And if you want to have a little more excitement here, please pray for him. Guess what? He's entering the Shoda House, the seminary, in just a few months. So keep him in prayer as he begins, along with by then his wife, 3 years in Wisconsin, where he will finally be able to understand, oh, you ice and snow, bless you, the Lord, praise him, and magnify him forever. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. God bless you, and it's a pleasure.